boleh mulai?
Bisa Pak, udah live Pak.
Oh, udah?
Ya.
Okay. Hello, my friends. Thank you for this opportunity. Right now, today we will have a collaboration with Chainlink Labs and also with Matic Polygon. We have some agenda about Scales Defi, ya, Mas Juan.
Yes.
Yeah. Please introduce yourself, the representative or ambassador or from Chainlink Labs and also from Matic Polygon. Maybe Mr. Juan can explain.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mas Randy. Hello, everyone. My name is Joan Karamoy. I'm the community manager for Chainlink Labs, especially for Indonesia. I've been on the community for 2 years, both crypto and Chainlink. And when the team decides to expand in Southeast Asia, I was able to help out. And here I am now, and very excited to be here. Thank you, Randy, and nice to meet you, Asif.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asif. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Asif, and I lead Polygon DeFi growth efforts for Polygon. Before that, I was working as an engineer in a Web2 company and joined Polygon in March. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to be here today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asif. Welcome to our regular event. Dev usually makes this event with Chainlink Labs every 2 weeks with Mr. Juan Karamoy and their community Chainlink Indonesia. Also, right now we try to see the perspective from Matic Polygon and Chainlink Indonesia. The purpose of this event is to increase brand awareness from each token and foundation, and also giving the audience more fundamental knowledge, and we hope that there will be more user and developer in Indonesia to have applicable knowledge from this education. And also, please share this webinar links to your own community. This is a great news for everybody, of course, and we hope we can do more webinar event. We also welcome to every ambassador representative from each coin or token. And okay, now we will start the first question. Maybe Mr. Juan will try to answer the question, and then Mr. Asif will give your own perspective about what is Matic Polygon and layer 1 and also layer 2. Mr. Asif?
Yeah, sure. So,
yeah,
so for people who
cannot being.
Hello, am I audible now?
You don't
Yep, I
have
can hear
any
you.
video.
Yeah, sure. So for people who are not aware of what Polygon is, so Polygon is a suite of scaling solutions for Ethereum. So we believe that Ethereum as a blockchain needs a variety of scaling solutions, and we pretty much intend to ship those out. So our vision is that developers and users both should have the freedom to use different scaling solutions. So our current scaling solution is a proof of stake blockchain. It's live, and that is seeing a lot of usage, around 500K daily active users. And in the future, we very much intend to release rollups scaling solutions as well. So we would be releasing zero knowledge based EVM compatible rollup in the Q1 2022. And yes, that is pretty much some Polygon's efforts.
Okay, That's quite a brief explanation from Mr. Asif. And the next we will ask about what is Chainlink, Mr. Juan Karamoy.
Yeah, so what Chainlink is essentially, when Chainlink first started, the idea is to connect a blockchain to any external data, any APIs, price data, weather data, because as we know, it's smart contracts. To make smart contracts useful for real world applications, they do rely on reliable and 100% truth data. And how do we get this? Chainlink creates a framework that aggregates this data via different methods of aggregating them, perhaps for price, for examples. It can be aggregated and averaged via the weight of the volume that the exchanges do, assuming these data come from exchanges. And that's an example for price feeds. However, throughout times, Chainlinks became a lot more than that, provide suites of services that pretty much would the blockchain or smart contract would need for mainstream adoptions. For example, price feeds being used in many DeFi applications. A second, probably a popular service is the VRF, which is a verifiable random functions. Functions where you can verify cryptographically on chains, proving that it is 100% truthful and it's not manipulated by any actors in the process, for example, developers. And there's a suite of other things. One of the most recently announced is CCIP, a cross-chain interoperability protocol for cross-chain messaging. And that's just to name a few.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Juan. That's quite a good explanation for Chainlink. Before, we already have an event with Chainlink and also with Matic Polygon, and Robbie Joe already told us some good explanation also. But now we will jump to DeFi, decentralized finance. And we want to know, the audience really curious about what is DeFi. And please, Mr. Juan, you can answer or give a perspective from Chainlink. But
yeah, sure. I don't think we will not be able to find the definition or textbook definition of DeFi in, let's say, a dictionary today, right? So I think the term decentralized finance is still very new. However, it does correspond to certain, perhaps should I say, certain things. Excuse me. And so decentralized finance, I guess the simplest way of explaining it is finance services that utilizes smart contract as their backend. And obviously, smart contract depends on decentralized technology, blockchain. Therefore, that's why it's called decentralized. And I guess a few things that that entails of DeFi is that it's being tamper-proof, and hence it's not be able to manipulate it. For example, for automated money markets, once for example, a cryptocurrency is locked in smart contract, supposedly that the smart contract is safe and they audit it. No developers who should be able to tamper with it or any other parties, hence removing the third party supposedly risk. There's a natural word for that, but I can't think of the actual word right now.
okay. How about you, Mr. Asif? Do you have an opinion what is DeFi?
Yeah, sure. So to me, how I view DeFi is just the borderless, trustless usage of financial services by anyone, any person spread out across any geography. So let's say you are a person who maybe don't have access to, let's say, US dollars, because maybe it's really extremely hard for you to buy US dollars via forex agent or those kind of things. So here is where DeFi comes in. and gives you the tools, the services, the protocols to get you exposure to these different asset classes, which otherwise would be extremely difficult for a normal person. So right now, if you look at a normal use case for even for a new user, so they can pretty much buy stable coins, and given the high inflation environment that we are currently facing, if you live in a country that is maybe developing, that may have significantly higher inflation rates than then maybe dollar when compared to dollar. For example, in India, I think the inflation rate is significantly high, and people who hold Indian rupees, they lose a significant amount of their value over, let's say, 5 years or 10 years. So DeFi in a way is really helpful, as you can get exposure to stable coins and maybe just deposit on Aave, and on Aave on your stable coins you can earn maybe like 7 to 8% yield also. So on, let's say, on an amount on which you were losing like 5% per year, instead now you are gaining like 8%, which I think is a big win for a lot of users, I would say. This is how I pretty much view DeFi. And of course we can talk about the more advanced use cases for DeFi, which more of the power users use. But let's say for a new user, this is pretty much DeFi: access to financial tools, protocols, services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asif. That's quite a good answer. So Mr. Juan Karama give a perspective from developer, right? And Mr. Asif here giving more truth and by the fact that from user base and like it is have an advantage in Mr. Asif country in India. And now I'll ask both of you about what is the main function of DeFi. At first, this crypto already create DeFi from the first, right? And what is the main purpose of DeFi being created at first, Mr. Juan?
I guess I can start, and I'm sure Asif, being the folks on DeFi, could add on to what I'd say later. So I think the main appeal for DeFi right now, or the function, is that with more simple use cases, let's say Aave or even Bancor, it's an alternative service to the bank, to services that's provided by traditional banks right now. And going beyond that, not only it is not restricted but geographically, but you are removing that counterparty risk or that centralization risk. Perhaps this is more common in Indonesia. There has been cases where there is a perhaps a bad actor, let's say in the bank industry or in a specific bank, where they have enormous amount of control and manipulates or let's say abuse the power to for their own goods, causing losses in users' funds or customers' fund. But in DeFi, you don't have that risk. Of course, you have other risks, smart contract risk or technology risk, but those are minimized, assuming you've taken necessary steps. And not only that, in most countries, let's say in Western world, let's say US and Canada, where the savings interest rate perhaps is only 1 or 2%, you can get a much higher one in DeFi, and that's the main appeal. Going beyond that, again, it can reach a wider audience, because using DeFi, you don't. Perhaps this is why a lot of people argue for regulations for the industry, but you don't necessarily need to be a certain age to use it, unlike some services that's available in the traditional markets. And going beyond that again, for the power users, a lot of people, I think there's a popular term called yield farming, where you can essentially stake your tokens perhaps in different protocols using different methods. Some are staking it in liquidity pools to earn yourself yield, and kind of doing it over and over to earn yourself enormous amount of yields, which is again not available in the traditional finances market, I'd suppose.
Okay, how about Mr. Asif Khan?
Yeah, so if we talk about DeFi use functions primarily, I would say that depends a lot on the user who is actually using it. And a good thing about DeFi is that now it gives so much avenues for people for different types of users. So let's say you are a new user and you don't understand much about DeFi. So there are applications which are fairly easy to use and you don't have to think so much about your exposure. As I talked earlier, Aave may be a one where you just take your stable coins and then you don't have to think about it that much. But let's say you're a more crypto native user. You understand how these kind of things works. So then maybe you can use AMMs for people who don't understand AMMs. It's or DEXs. They basically provide users the ability to buy or sell tokens on chain in a trustless, decentralized manner. And users can also provide liquidity on these DEXs and they can earn also some yield. Now, this is somewhat advanced than supplying liquidity on Aave. So it's up to user how they want to use it. Even more sophisticated users may use different financial derivative contracts or protocols that gives people opportunity to, let's say, mint options or perpetual swaps, these products which are more sophisticated but can help unlock more value, more returns for users. Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asif. Let's say this DeFi, in conclusion, have its own framework for financing its user and community and making a solid base for everyone to use an applicable application in web or even in Android or even in Apple. When do the foundation or organization launch DeFi in common, especially on Matic Polygon and Chainlink ecosystem? On what phase or stage do coins or token create DeFi? So this has its own timeline for Chainlink and also Matic Polygon. I hope you can answer this question because it will took you some time to remember the roadmap, I guess. Let's start from Mr. Juan Karamay.
So I guess what I could say is that for Chainlink, which have the link token, and for Polygon Matic token, each tokens are created with their own cryptoeconomics in mind. The link token usage is number one, to pay the node operators for their services, and second, to be used as collateral by the node operators to incentivize truthful reporting and reliable data. So when it comes to Chainlink, that's the functionality or utility of the link token, and it's not used for, let's say, governance for a DeFi protocol or using it for perhaps for any other DeFi applications directly. However, indirectly, when staking is out, the link token will be used as a collateral to make sure that the data, or let's say the price data that's reported and being used by this DeFi, multiple DeFi applications, securing billions or maybe eventually even trillions of value on chain, that they are reliable and can be depended upon. Because as we know it, there has been multiple oracles attack in the past, which caused it to liquidate a lot of value in DeFi protocols. So that's more or less the perhaps how Chainlink will play a role in this DeFi ecosystem.
Okay, how about Mr. Asif from Matic Polygon?
Yeah, sure. So here you're talking primarily about the Matic token utility. Is that correct?
We want to know about when do Matic Polygon launch its DeFi?
Okay. Got it. So as a blockchain, we would not exactly launch our DeFi protocol because we would be the infra layer upon which DeFi protocols are built, right? So we came live at around September last year, and since then there have been hundreds of DeFi protocols that have been built on Polygon, if you think about it. And yeah, I think builders have not still stopped. So it will carry on. New builders will come. They'll build new DeFi protocols, and that is pretty much how the ecosystem grows.
So it just from September 2020, right, Mr. Asif?
Yeah. So the POS chain went live on September 2020. Yeah.
But it has been substitute government system like banking and else. So we will talk about the growth, right? The next question is about how does the parameter of growth has been measured, as Mr. Asif known as Polygon Growth DeFi. How about Chainlink also? Maybe Mr. Asif can answer this question first.
Yeah, sure. So when we started this this growth mission, I would even say the aim was to bring DeFi for all. So I would say the biggest parameter of a growth would be the daily active users on a network, because the intention from the very first day was to bring new users in the space, bring more value to Ethereum, bring more value to users. So yeah, I would say the biggest metric would be daily active users. Uh, and yes, some of the other metrics may be the number of transactions we are doing on the network on a daily basis. Uh, Also the TVL that some of the protocols are having, our current chain is securing the amount of TVL. And also the number of developers that are now interested in the ecosystem, uh, which is I would say the biggest KPI, because developers are pretty much the soul of any ecosystem.
Okay, so there is daily active users and new users to be invited, and also from the transaction in daily. So this is the biggest KPI for growth measurement for DeFi. What about Mr. Juan Karamoy from Chainlink?
So again, don't quote me on this because it is not my primary job, I suppose. But one of the simple KPI or matrix used obviously is the number of DeFi protocols or projects that uses the Chainlink price feeds to power their protocol. However, that boils down to the total value locked in this protocol, much like Polygon, because essentially these the data in which they rely upon provided by Chainlink. Essentially, Chainlink is providing that security, making sure that no customers or no users gets liquidated with false data. So yeah, the answer is the total value locked in those protocols.
Total value which has been locked. Okay, that's the key. So there is two perspectives here from the ecosystem, from Mr. Asif, and also more technical answer from Mr. John Karamoy also. This is a good answer for the audience in Indonesia. There is two sides of every explanation. There is more value to dig more in the future. And the next question is, who is the first people or community decide to make a framework of DeFi instead of CeFi? Maybe Mr. John, you can go.
That would be a little bit hard to answer, perhaps. Again, depending on how we determine DeFi, decentralized finance, would a medium of exchange, let's say a currency, be considered a DeFi? These days, probably not. But if it is, I guess we can use Bitcoin or so. Therefore, who's the founder of Bitcoin or started? Probably Satoshi Nakamoto. But I guess another way of asking that question is what is the first DeFi projects? And I'm not completely sure. Maybe Asif could answer this.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I would say that the talk of DeFi, it of course blew up during the DeFi summer of 2020. But before that, also people were thinking of how they can implement DeFi. This would be way back in, let's say, 2016, 17, 18, during the last cycle as well. And would say that some of the protocols that were the first ones in the space would be Maker. So MakerDAO pretty much started in last cycle around 2017, 18, and of course got big last year because of the DeFi explosion. Other first DeFi protocols would be, I think Aave also existed way back. Back then, its name was different. I think it was called ETHLent. Banker is also a pretty old DeFi protocol. So would say that these was the first ones that set for this precedent, this movement, and yes, builders have been building since then, bringing new things into the space.
Okay, so it is a little bit hard to explain who's the first people, right? Or community that decide to make this framework of DeFi. It's okay. Maybe we want to know more about what are some of the challenges to develop and scale DeFi, as well as making it mainstream. Mr. Juan Karamoy.
So I suppose with some, with the basic ones, with the layer ones that we have today, primarily Ethereum, it does have its own drawbacks. For example, the slow throughput. The finality of the block takes longer, as well as when the network's congested, the transaction fee could increase enormously, perhaps hindering some users to actually utilize this DeFi unless it makes financial sense to do so. But obviously that's being solved by projects, one of them Polygon here. And another challenges where Chainlink comes in is creating an oracle for the data for the price feeds. It is costly to make for projects to create their own oracle to get their data reliably. Hence, with this the framework that Chainlink provides, not only is the one that's battle tested and on its way to becoming a standard, but with more projects using it, it does have its economic of scales, making it cheaper to use as more projects uses it. But I think the biggest thing when it comes to scaling it is the asymmetrical information for the mainstream communities. The fact that there is a learning curve to it, and not many people are familiar with it. Hence, people actually need to invest their time in order to use DeFi applications, and secondly, also including the user experience or user interface. The fact that you have to be able to set up your own wallets, whether it be centralized or decentralized wallets, hot or cold wallets, and that itself takes some learning to do. It can be done, and it's not that hard, but we need a better way to communicate that and provide a better experience to onboard new users.
Yeah, and this is how we try to make it mainstream by educating the audience and the viewers regularly. I'm really glad that Mr. Johan Karamoy always been here with Thrift Exchange, and now Mr. Asif, you can maybe give an answer for those questions.
Sure. So this question itself, right? The challenges we are facing in scaling DeFi as mainstream, right? Yeah. So I would say that, of course, we have built great products, but when it comes to the user experience, things are lacking a bit, and would say that this is the biggest challenge, perhaps. So if you have used MetaMask, would say it's a bit challenging for new users, right? So user experience on the wallet side needs to be improved a lot, I would say. Also, with the emergence of a multi-chain world, now there are a lot of bridging protocols as well, and bridging across multi-chains, bridging to CEXs, that is really difficult for a new user. So a lot of things need to be done on the user experience side, on the bridges user experience side as well. And would say this would be the biggest step for making DeFi mainstream.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asif. Now we'll continue to the next question. How are DeFi on Polygon differs than DeFi on links, layer 1 or layer 2 from Chainlink? Mr. Asif?
Yeah, sure. So if you talk about L1 and L2 experience, the biggest factor here would be the difference in fees. So there are a lot of DeFi protocols that may ingest a lot of gas uh, because their smart contracts have more complexity. They may consume more gas. So let's say if you're talking about some derivative protocols or synthetic asset protocols, they may consume a lot of gas. And to build those on L1, uh, that would make things really difficult for users because those contracts may also ingest like maybe $200 worth of gas fee. So on a scaling solution, it gives developers a bit more freedom to build these synthetic assets derivative platforms, uh, because now the limitation of such high gas fees is done away with.
Okay, so the problem is from it's consume a lot of gas fee. So what about from Chainlink Labs, Mr. John Karaman? Have any opinion?
Yeah, I think Asif mentioned the biggest one, the fact that it is faster and cheaper for most people. I think that makes it opens up DeFi to more people as well, for those considering the fees, but also for DeFi's on layer 2s, for example, it does there are some DeFi's that require token bridging. So that takes an extra knowledge or some digging on how to do that. But I think hopefully for most DeFi users now, again, don't quote me, but that should be not an issue.
Okay, thank you. Now, how does DeFi benefit the users and also developer? This question is good, so maybe both of you can give your own perspective and which has been more profited. Maybe start from Mr. Juan first.
I think when it comes to DeFi benefiting users and developers, it's not about who has gained more profit from it, but I'd say it's like it's not a zero-sum game. So as developers provide these services to users, alternatives to traditional banking, providing greater transparency and security as well, users gain their own value, which is in most cases higher interest than what banks would offer, for example, right?
Right.
So starting with users, how do users benefit? I might sound like I repeat myself a lot. They have alternatives services instead of banking, traditional banking, which they can partake in to achieve higher interest with removing the counterparty risk of traditional models, as well as they can now take part in a much bigger ways as opposed to, again, the traditional models they can now provide. They can stake their cryptocurrency to lend to others, or they can stake it to provide liquidity. So they can participate in more ways. And as for developers, perhaps before developers are more focused on perhaps building things that is not very financial. Now developers can make products that replaces, for example, banks and other traditional businesses, which was not popular even 5 years ago, or maybe was not even available 5 years ago as it is today. So that would be my answer.
Okay, so the value is to initiate a real product that can be used by both users and also developers. That is the main value. What about Mr. Asif?
Yes, so I would say that DeFi has benefited users and developers both. And as Johan said, I mean, both parties are winning here. It's not that one party is benefiting at the expense of other. Uh, if there are more users, developers benefit. If there are more developers, they build great protocols, then users benefit. Uh, and the main benefit to the users and developers would be that everything from day one becomes global, right? So let's say if you build a conventional fintech company, you would be pretty much limited to your own geography. So let's say you start a payment service in Indonesia, you've got that amount of population only, and to now get your application global would be a next level challenge. But DeFi pretty much helps developers push through that, because the day you are deployed, your smart contracts are deployed on chain, potentially any user in the world can use your product, and they can derive value out of it. And same way it works vice versa for the users. They can derive value from any protocol that, let's say, was built from developers of any country, and that opens a lot of opportunities for everyone.
Okay, we both agree that there are so many value that can be bring to the real world. And now for intermezzo questions, we want to know about head-to-head Chainlink to and also Matic Polygon, can one coin or token being compared to one another? As we know, that link has its own specialty as bridging the blockchain, and also Matic Polygon on proof of stake. What's differ from each other? Maybe you can throw your own statement here. Start from Mr. Juan.
I think comparing the token would not be fair or would be an apple to apple comparison. Because much like the questions before, it's not one party, it's not, let's say, user or developer, which one has profited more. But in the case for Chainlink and Polygon, both the token and perhaps the project, the project is complementary towards each other. Historically, when Chainlink is natively integrated to a blockchain, we see almost instantly the rise of DeFi protocols existing on that chain and being used by users, because again, DeFi protocols relies a lot on oracles for their price feeds. Hence, Chainlink being natively integrated opens up enormous choices or options for price feeds that this DeFi can use.
Okay, what about Mr. Asif?
Yeah, sure. So, as Johan said, I wouldn't say that you can compare one token with another. And I think maybe the better approach can be comparing one vertical of token with the other. So let's say there are a lot of Oracle solutions. So maybe comparing link with one of the Oracle solution tokens may be a better approach, or there are a lot of proof of stake blockchains. So comparing their tokens with maybe Matic, maybe a good comparison. And yeah, that is pretty much for all sectors within the industry. So you want to compare dexes to dexes, derivative platforms to derivative platforms, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you for the answers. And now another intermezzo question: is the knowledge to know a coin will be dominant with some country, or there is tendency that in India just have more knowledge about Matic, and in Canada more users from Chainlink? Is it affect the growth for each organization? Mr. Juan?
So
You want to know more about geographic and demographic, and because it is very scattered away, right? The users and the developer around the world. Maybe you can give an insight.
Right. So I think there's a two parts questions. I think to answer that question, I won't be able to answer in detail, but more of a general approach. I think Indonesia being my primary community that I get involved in, the community, a lot of the community is interested in, let's say, price movements, and not so much about at least yet the technology underlying it or underpinning it. Hence, people get excited when the price of certain tokens perhaps jumped up like crazy, and those are the tokens that they perhaps ask or talk about. But on the other hand, there's not much information on the technology itself, on the fundamentals in Indonesian, whether it be in articles form or video form. Hence, there's that barrier of information, again, which is one of my missions to break down this wall and to provide greater knowledge to the community. And the second part is that crucial for the growth of the project itself? Perhaps for some, the lack of information for, let's say, developing for developing smart contracts, scripting smart contracts, or developing dApps would definitely indirectly affects perhaps the growth or like the spawn of new protocols or projects from that country. But from, let's say, Chainlink perspective, Chainlink focuses on B2, you could say B2B. We provide data for smart contracts, and most of the time smart contracts are being used for, let's say, another projects like DeFi, decentralized insurance, or gaming, right? These are businesses as well. So far, there has been a lot of projects coming pretty much everywhere, all over the world. So yeah, at least I can only answer for Indonesian community. It'll be great to onboard more projects from Indonesia to see, but yeah, that's I guess all I can say about it.
Okay, so the one that affect the growth of Chainlink, Mr. John here gives a statement: the truth about the user and also community, that price action is more interesting rather than technology development. But we cannot forget that the fundamental technology article or maybe information has been published by Mr. John Karamoy in Chainlink Labs is the essential and the main product that must be always shared to everyone, especially the user. Right, Mr. Juan?
Yeah, the community is primarily interested in price, but yeah, we are here to educate more on the fundamentals, on the technology use cases, because again, the real life use cases for smart contracts or hybrid smart contract technology built on Polygon is much greater than just looking at the price. It's I'd say it's really revolutionary, and again, we might not be able to picture it now, but in a few years down the line, I believe it'll impact ways in which we haven't imagined yet today.
Okay. How about Mr. Asif? Do you have your own perspective toward this issue?
Yeah, sure. So I think there may be some periods where certain geographies may be interested in a token. So I would say that around April, May, when Matic was having a great rally in terms of price action, a lot of Indian people got interested in it, which is fine. A lot of people got to know about the blockchain technology as well. But in the grand scheme of things, in the long run, don't think that that is a big factor, because these projects are all global. These tokens are all global, can be bought in dozens of countries. So in that case, one country perhaps cannot contribute that much in terms of token price, and we don't factor this in much, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asif. The next question is, what role does Chainlink play in Polygon's DeFi ecosystem? This related to each other. Maybe Mr. John can give an explanation about it.
Yeah, perhaps Asif could provide answers more on DeFi specifics. Chainlink is a framework for decentralized Oracle networks. It is open source and blockchain agnostic, meaning that it does not care what blockchain it is, or whether it be a layer 1 or layer 2 or sidechains or parachains. If there's a demand, it can be integrated to any chains and to any APIs and price feeds. So far, I think a big one of the most used services from Chainlink on Polygons is the price feeds to secure DeFi protocols or protocols that's built on the Polygon ecosystem. And secondly is the VRF, verifiable random functions. But of course, as time goes on, more services will be available as well, such as proof of reserve and CCIP as it is getting developed, and so on.
Okay, Mr. Asif, you can explain about Polygon DeFi ecosystem also, and if it's related to Chainlink, maybe you can
So
tell us.
So on a higher level, would say that. So let's say these are different DeFi protocols that are deployed on chain. Now, for a blockchain, you can't interact with the outer world, right? So how do you get data that is outside the blockchain world? This is where Chainlink comes in. So let's say if there is any DeFi protocol that needs price feeds, prices of assets uh, across the world, right? That would be the real price, aggregated price from a variety of data sources. So here is where Chainlink comes in. So Chainlink price feeds would be essentially used by any protocol that wants prices either on exchanges or lending markets. So let's say there is a stablecoin issuance protocol called MAI, where you can take your collateral and mint stablecoins out of it. And they also have a liquidation mechanism because the form of lending is over collateralized. So they utilize Chainlink because when you are doing lending, you just can't budge on the collateral ratios, right? The liquidations. So you want quick price feeds, you want accurate price feeds, and this is where Chainlink comes in. And a large number of DeFi protocols use it for this function.
Okay.
Hope that answers the question.
Okay. So many coins or token really dependent to Chainlink to display the price fit, and Chainlink always giving a quick mechanism in liquidation, also in lending market. There is more question. Maybe this will give a solution to our community in Indonesia, especially the people that they will be more interested to technology development, and there will be more members that have same passion with Mr. Juan and also Mr. Asif. How volunteer can contribute toward DeFi, as financing is a diverse topic, and government also have their own product. Is it make more options or an obstacle for public or even private sector? This volunteer means maybe every coin or token have their own protocol to hire more members, right, in community, not just as developer, right?
So would say that since the space is growing at such a fast pace, there are a lot of opportunities for volunteers. Of course, technical opportunities are there. If a person is developer, they can pretty much easily become a contributor. But let's say for people who are not developers, they can also join the space because the space is pretty much looking for more talent. So let's say if you have interest in marketing or community building or data analysis, whatever it is, there are a lot of openings right now in these DeFi protocols. Also on a blockchain level, users can pretty much, interested people can pretty much check on the protocol websites. And I would say there are hundreds of jobs live right now. So yeah, if they want to go full time, of course, there are a lot of opportunities, but if they are active on this in the communities, if they are active on Discords, Telegram. There are a lot of other activities happening on a weekly basis as well, where of course volunteers can earn some bounties as well. So would suggest people to just be more active in the space and keep a lookout for those bounties and those opportunities. For financing, I would say, so currently, uh, if a builder is building a new product, would say that it is somewhat easier to get those things sorted out because of the market conditions. Of course, we are in this big bull market right now. So to any builders who are listening, would say to not think so much about the funding part, but focus on building better products, and those things will pretty much happen uh, if the product is good.
Okay, so there is the question here. One more about volunteer ambassador or maybe candidate that will join our Chainlink and also Matic Polygon. And the next question is about the product of DeFi, how it is affect government, and also this job process hiring requirement is about. I'm just wondering about if there is someone working in a bank and he or she wants to volunteer himself in DeFi in industry. Is it really possible for them, or is it will make some more obstacle for government also? Do you understand what I'm asking, Mr. John?
I just want to make sure. So you are asking if it's possible for someone that works in the traditional banking or finance industry to participate in, let's say, development or get involved in a DeFi projects.
Is it a threat for the government or traditional bank?
A threat. I mean, the fact that a traditional bank worker per se isn't just DeFi, perhaps that should say something about the current system that they're using it. So I'm not sure what you mean by threat, but of course they can. It is a lot of these projects are open. They welcome anyone. Anyone can join in. And tying it back to the first part of the questions, volunteer. I mean, if let's say, just taking Indonesia for example, if you happen to know, if you get involved in the community, learn informations about it, there's still plenty of space where you can literally spread out the message and educate people in the community about the technology, about the use cases, even about the projects alone. And that's one simple way you can get involved. And for developers, like Asif mentions, there are projects doing a lot of bounty programs. If you can propose or build something for protocol or for blockchains or for projects, you'll get involved that way as well. That's one direct way, right? So yeah, plenty of opportunity, and definitely anyone can join in for the most part.
Yeah, I'm agree with Mr. Juan. This is the last question for both of you. What is the future of DeFi like on Polygon and or in relation to Chainlink? Mr. Juan?
Maybe Mr. Asif could start with this one.
Oh, right.
Perhaps on the Polygon being the layer that hosts DeFi.
Yeah, sure. So if we talk about the future, I would say that since the number of users, if you compare on a global scale, is really low. So one big trend that we are definitely estimating would be that numbers of users is set to increase drastically. Some of these financial products can pretty much in terms of user base do like 100x, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal as well, honestly. Second thing about the future of DeFi would be just increase on the security aspect of things. Lot of There are a lot of exploits right now in DeFi due to variety of reasons. Maybe the project gets launched in a quick haste. There are some attack vectors. Maybe the code is not audited, these kind of things. So these things would also be done in a better way as we progress on, and the exploits you see would keep on becoming more rarer and rarer, and people would start having more trust in DeFi. Uh, yeah, and of course, if we are estimating how the asset prices of the macro crypto may increase, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, if that keeps on increasing as per the market estimation in long run, would say that DeFi we are pretty much just starting.
Okay, thank you. What about Mr. John? Do you have something to add for this question?
Yes, definitely. So when it comes to DeFi, I agree that it is pretty much the beginning. Even when comparing it, the total value locked to the total market cap of the whole cryptocurrency market, which is about, I suppose, around 2 trillion, if I'm not mistaken.
Around 2.2 trillion.
Yeah, 2.2.
Yeah.
And DeFi is only at what, 200,000 billion locked right now. So that's about like 10%, right? Yeah, that's about 10%. We can
much.
We can 10x from here, even in the cryptocurrency market alone, and not to mention as the crypto market grows, obviously there's more room for DeFi to grow. And again, with the more development of bridging tokens across chains, and with Chainlink developing CCIP, a cross-chain operating protocol, essentially creates a standard for messaging across chains and smart contracts, as well as other technology that Chainlink's building, let's say with any connecting blockchain to any APIs. Number one is that now the tokens can transfer across chains, and that creates like basically a multiverse or multi-chains of protocol smart contracts triggering DeFi protocols in different chains. And I think what was going to be interesting is the fact Chainlink able to connect CBDCs to blockchains, meaning that centralized, perhaps just centralized digital currencies can utilize DeFi services and gain their values via Chainlink. So that's a big one. One thing, as we mentioned before, one of the hardest thing to scale mainstream adoption of DeFi is the learning curve. However, what traditional banking, the advantage that traditional banking does is that they have an existing user base. So once this become a reality, banks could really literally plug and play, offering DeFi services to the users, their current users, which again bring in a whole tons of value to DeFi.
Okay, thank you both of you, Mr. Juan and Mr. Asif. From this lot of questions, the viewers will know all about DeFi, and this knowledge will, of course, minimize the risk from its product indirectly, of course, and the risk from user base, and also the potential of new user being joined in to this project DeFi to know more about its updates, and also it will minimize risk from those who involve on coin projects both for Matic Polygon and Chainlink. We already talked some discussion about that with Mr. Juan and Mr. Asif. And the main point here is knowing each other as complementary to each position for coins or tokens. And the futures of this both foundation will be more likely to be more optimistic if there is more users and community to be actively involved. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for both of you for your time. This is so a little bit exhausting because the topic is full of DeFi. We'll explore more research about how to make our audience and viewers and new users especially to understand and getting involved with the community of Chainlinks and Matic Polygon, and also using the application of Thrift as an exchange to make everything easy and more comfortable, because we always build a relation with official community, and then they are verified to give valid information. And of course, this is for more about corporate social responsibility. In the end, together we give comfortable and transparent data and information, both technique and also fundamental, precisely. And okay, we will continue the next event, and you can see us in banner at Trivindo in Instagram account. And if you want to join Chainlink Labs, you can just search Chainlink community on Telegram, and also Matic Polygon in Telegram also. Thank you, both of you. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, sure. Just a last bit thing. So if any of the builders are building there, or people are looking to get involved with the community, you can DM me on Twitter, and we can find things of how we can work. So maybe you can share my Twitter ID with the community. And yeah, looking forward to builders. And of course, if you are building on DeFi, you will be using Chainlink oracles. So yeah, pretty excited to meet you people.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Asif.
thank you so much, Asif Khan. And for those that wants to get involved in Chainlink, anyone from Indonesia or not from Indonesia, you can visit the Chainlink Telegram or Twitter. But for those in Indonesia, we do have a Telegram, which is t.me/chainlinkid, and on Facebook and on Instagram, which is chainlink.indonesia. Looking forward to meeting you all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. John, Mr. Asif. We will see each other maybe next event, maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now. Okay, thank you, everybody. See you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.